everyone, Emily here in Los Angeles.
And I'm Dean in North Carolina.
And this is Hackaweek Coast to Coast, episode 6.
Yay for 6.
Yay.
All right.
Well, Dean, you have a bunch of news to talk about today.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. Actually, first up, I've got a new computer in the Hack Shack here that I'm actually podcasting with right now. I took a Dell T3500. You can pick these up cheap on eBay. You can get them without a hard drive for like $65, and it's a decent.
Wow.
It's a decent computer. It's like a tower computer, real expandable, and they came with I think a 3.2 gigahertz processor. You can upgrade them to, as far as the memory, I think they can do 16 gigabytes, something like that. I've got 12 in this one. So now I can do all my video editing, everything else right here in the Hack Shack instead of having to move back and forth between here and my office computer, which is another T3500. So that was kind of cool. Doing that upgrade made a little difference in me not having to do so much back and forth between the two computers all the time. I was working off an old, what is it? I've got it now propping up a shelf down underneath. Hey, they work good. You know, it's kind of like cinder blocks, right? It's an Inspiron 530, I think, from 2006. So yeah, 12 years old, 13 years old. Time to let that one go. And then I saw SuperCon is actually selling tickets, and I love the ticket prices. Now think about this for a minute. 128 to 256. Divisible by 8. Coincidence? I think not. That was totally done on purpose. Emily, you've been to some of these. I have never been to one. I hope I can make it. It's in November, the 15th, 16th, and 17th. So tell us about what SuperCon's all about.
Yeah, so I went to SuperCon last year, and it was my first SuperCon, and it was my first con of any kind. So I didn't really know what to expect. I was still kind of new in the maker community. I'd been going to my local maker group for a while, but I hadn't really been around any hardware hacking people too much. So I didn't really know what to expect. It's really fun. It's a bunch of people at the Supply Frame Design Lab here in Pasadena. And for people who aren't familiar with Supply Frame, that's the parent company of Hackaday and Tindy. And if you don't know what Tindy is, it's like Etsy, but for electronics. So Supply Frame is the parent company, and they have a design lab, which was sort of like a maker space, but not like open to the public. It's open to people who get fellowships at the design lab. In any case, that's the venue for Supply Frame Hackaday SuperCon. And last year, it was like 3 days of really smart, really talented people that are into hardware hacking just hanging out. And so they have like an open patio area, and they have a bunch of tables set up with a big tent over it. And they gave us these badges when we walk in. And so for people that are familiar with Badge Life will know what badges are. For people who aren't familiar with Badge Life, badges are these electronic gizmos that you get for going to cons. Like if you go to DEF CON, or if you go to SparkleCon here in Southern California, or if you went to LayerOne last weekend, they give you a badge. And it's usually a PC board designed to look like something and to do something. And depending on what kind of con you're going to, the badge will do different things. So if you're going to DEF CON, which is a lot of like crypto stuff, there's going to be secrets maybe hidden in the badge that you have to you have to figure them out, and there's going to be a competition over the weekend to see who can figure these things out. So SuperCon is not so different. And last year they gave us a badge. It was a really cool thing. It was a PCB computer with a little LCD screen on it and a full keyboard made out of little tactile switches. And it had some neat stuff in it. It had you could play Zork on it. You could play there was a little animation that my friend Roger made that's, what is that cat? Why am I forgetting the name of the cat with the rainbow?
Nyan.
Nyan cat, yeah. Roger made a really cool Nyan cat animation. But there was also some secret stuff on it. You could get it to play Worm. And then there was a challenge, and there was like a mathematical challenge. So they give you these badges at the beginning of the con, and then you have all weekend to hack on them. And then on Sunday, there's like a closing ceremony with a competition. And so there's different categories for how to hack your badge. So there's like best hardware hack, there's best software hack, there's best, I don't know, there was several categories. And so people could be organized into teams, you could be up there by yourself, and it's all voluntary. You don't have to do any of this if you don't want to. but you go up on stage and you show off what you've done with your badge. And then people, it was very informal. It was just like, let's cheer for who we like the best. And they had a sound meter, like a decibel meter up on stage, and whoever like got the loudest roar out of the crowd would get the most points.
Cool.
Yeah, it was really fun, but there's more to it than that. There was some talks. Sarah Petkus, if you guys are familiar with Sarah Petkus, she does the Shibon project. She came and talked about Shibon at last year's SuperCon, and that was great. She was up on stage in all her Shibon gear. And for people who aren't familiar with Sarah, Shibon is like I don't know what you'd call it. It's sort of like a cyber sex, like sex cyborg project where she's using like wearable technology to kind of explore her sexuality and like explore her body and its physiological reactions to sexuality. And it's a really, really, really cool project. So she came, they had other people giving talks. And then the big thing is that the Hackaday prize winners get announced, and then they go up on stage and they get to receive their award and they get to talk about their project. So it's a really fun time. A lot of cool people, just hanging out with people. And like, I walked around a lot. I was doing social media for Tindy. I walked around a lot and I looked at people's projects, and people bring their stuff with them, which is fun. Cause like, I don't know, they fly out from Wisconsin and they have a backpack crammed with every bit of like hacking stuff they can stuff in there.
Sure.
Because they don't know what they're going to need and what they're going to want. So they just jam as many things in there as they can. And they just have this whole spread out on their table area. It's like, oh, this guy has some kind of, like a holographic, like laser projector that he brought with him that's like small. And he's like, oh, he's wiring it straight to his badge. It's like, what are you doing, dude?
Cool.
So much cool stuff like that. And then people just hanging out and like drinking and eating and having a good time. It was such a blast. And I was so grateful for them for putting on such a wonderful event. And I really look forward to going back this year. And if anyone's like thinking about like, oh, I'm on the fence, like you should go. It's a great time. It's not so big as some of the other cons are. It's pretty small. I mean, there's a good number of people that come, but it's not like Maker Faire where you have a whole like fairgrounds to like explore through. Like everyone's just hanging out in a small area, and you just get to be in there in this really cool mix of stuff and people and good ideas and creative energy, and it's a blast.
Now you're making me really want to make it to this thing, because it's, for me it's a time and a budget thing and all that stuff, but I do have a brother in Arizona that I could visit on the way that I haven't seen for a while, so it could kind of work out. So we'll see how it goes. I would love to go, and everything you've told me makes me just kind of look at the ticket prices and go, yeah, it's totally worth it. It sounds really cool.
Yeah.
I would gladly pay whatever to I guess the pricing is probably for how many days, I would assume. Like,
yeah, I think so.
256 is how many days you pay for. And of course you would want to go for all of them if you're going to go that far, like I would. So
yeah,
I may have to see if I can work that out.
I don't speak on behalf of Supply Frame or SuperCon, so take this with a grain of salt. But I know last year for people that maybe could not afford the ticket prices, because they're not unreasonable, but for some people like those would be out of reach. They do give tickets out for free if you volunteer. I did some volunteering with them last year, and what they did last year was that if you signed up to be a volunteer, you'd pay half of your ticket price, whatever you were getting, like whether it was 1 day or 2 day, you just pay half, and then after you've completed your volunteering, then they just refund you that half price, so you get it for free. And they also gave us credits for Tindy, and I don't know if they're going to do that again, but it was really nice. So yeah, if it's a money issue, then just like keep an eye out and see if they're doing the volunteer thing again this year, because I know for some people that made the difference for them whether they were able to attend or not.
And even if you're volunteering, you're still there. You're in it,
Yeah.
Just like Maker Faire. A lot of people do the volunteer thing at Maker Faire for that reason, because you can get in for free and you're still there. You're still doing things, and you have time to walk around and stuff.
Yeah.
You're not obliged to do the whole weekend of volunteering. So
yeah, that's right.
Definitely be keeping an eye out for that. That might help me out a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
What else you got?
My wife Lisa and I love watching Black Mirror. We've discovered this show a couple weeks ago. It's been around since what, 2012, 2013, something like that. And we binge watch all these various things on Netflix during dinner every night. And we discovered Black Mirror a while back, which is basically a look at society and technology. And so you have the benefits of the technology, but then there's always like, but here's the bad side of what could happen with it. There's always there's always the benefits, and then there's always the drawbacks. And so
Yeah.
it kind of looks at these stories of people, and they're something to do with high tech, but then how it basically bites them in the ass in some way. And the other, just like yesterday evening, we watched this one that's called Nosedive. Some of you listeners may be familiar with it. It's one where it's a society where everybody's running around with the phone rating each other. And it's not really a phone. It's like in the show, it's just a device that's for nothing more than just rating people as per how polite they are and things like that, which is actually going on in some countries. I think it's in China that's happening. In some of the Asian countries, I read about this, where they actually rate people on their politeness, et cetera, or whether or not they're rude. And then today I read this story where Uber is deactivating riders that have ratings less than a 4.6. And I'm going, oh my God, life is imitating art, so to speak, in this thing. So that was pretty wild to see that. And I mentioned it to my wife, and that's what she said. So you go, oh my God, life is imitating art. So
is that 4.6 out of 5? Is that the
yeah. It's
because that's not that much. Like
no.
I mean, I've never been a bad writer, but it seems like if you had one bad rating once, like you might fall below 4.6. That's
yeah.
I mean,
well, I don't know. On Uber, on the show, it was 4.5 was the max, but who knows what that. But it's kind of like their spin on it was that, well, if we've got to uphold standards as drivers and a company, well, then we should be able to throw that back at riders as well. Then if you're an impolite bastard, we're not going to give you a ride.
Yeah, which
cabbies have done forever. If you're an ass to a cabbie trying to hail them down, they're just going to go, hey, piss off. And they're going to take the guy next to you or the woman next to you or the kid or the whoever.
Right.
And so that's just kind of how it works. So this is just assigning a number to it.
Sure. That seems like a low number. Because what is that? That's like, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to do the math. That's like 92%, right?
Yeah.
Like 4.62. Yeah, that's an A minus. Like you're getting kicked off of Uber for getting an A- at being a writer.
Right. So what? Every time you ride Uber, you got to kiss ass and
I guess. I always try to be nice to Uber drivers. You know what? That Black Mirror thing reminded me, and this could have been inspired by Black Mirror or the other way around. Do you remember, like a couple of years ago, a couple of women, I think, announced a startup where they were doing like Yelp for people, and it was like you could just rate people, and it didn't have to be like a person you work with necessarily. It's just like someone or like an ex-boyfriend or like your next door neighbor. And I looked it up right now. It's called People, but Peeple. They announced this thing and they just got destroyed. Like everyone hated them, and rightly so. Like I don't want to go through life getting rated like everywhere I go. Like I try to be good and polite, but still, like what kind of life is that to live? To think that like anything you say or do can get like aggregated and put up on a score on the internet that anyone can see. That's craziness. So yeah, and I had a friend from Singapore, and this is a little different, but she said in Singapore they didn't have an app, but they have like very hyper local media there, because Singapore is it's a country that's a city, right? It's just one city and everyone lives there. And so like imagine living in a city that was your entire country and everyone kind of knows each other a little bit. And she said like if you were on like a bus and you got in an argument with someone else on the bus, like everyone pulls their phone out and they all record the argument, and then they'll all like post it on social media, and they'll send it to like the local news media. Wow. And then the news media might put you on the news that night as like rude lady like yells at guy on bus. And then everyone will have seen you yelling at the guy on the bus. And she said it was awful. And like so many people would get harassed because like they did something in public that like other people didn't like, and she said it was insane, and she was very happy to move to Canada. So yeah, social media, great, right?
Describing that episode that we watched last night. You know? If anybody's interested, it's called Nosedive, and it's on Netflix on the Black Mirror. I think season 1. We're still in season 1. So, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of creepy when stuff like that happens.
Yeah, I'm gonna move out to the farm. I'm not enjoying it.
Yeah, working towards that ourselves here. We want to get out of the town and into the country.
Yeah.
Did you see Roomba has come up with a new robot, by the way, a new vacuum? It's a bargain at $1,300.
Wow.
And you know, the thing to me with Roombas was always like, you got this little, like, maybe, you know, half a liter size dustbin.
Yeah.
And how much can that really hold? And then the thing is just moving around and you think it's cleaning, but it's really not sucking up a lot of stuff. Well, this one, I guess it's the S9 Plus, it's called, has got a base station that it docks to. And then in there is another vacuum that then empties the dustbin so that the little one can go back out and run around. But now you got 2 devices you need to babysit and take care of instead of just one. So kind of weird how that.
You know what? I would like to see them make more of like an all-terrain Roomba, because I have a Neato bot vac, and it's a nice quality vacuum, but I can never use it because, like, if you want to use one of those, you have to keep your place like clean enough for it to drive around.
Right.
And I can't just let it drive around because I'm not clean enough to like always pick up my clothes. And so if I just left like a sock on the floor and then I go to work and I let my Neato drive around, I'm going to get home and it's going to be sitting in the middle of the floor with like a sock all wrapped up in it, like timing its little chime, its little help me chime. Or it's going to suck up the cord to my laptop, or I don't even know what. Like, when can they make a vacuum that just like doesn't get stuck on everything? That's what I'd like to see. Because the last time I let that thing go, it managed to get itself behind the couch and then like jammed itself up in between the couch and the end table, and it was just like sideways in there.
Nice. That's great.
Like, these things are only good for, like, you know, those people, I think like Kim Kardashian had some photos of her like her new house the other day, and it's like perfectly smooth, clean floors and nothing on the floor and no baskets and no rugs and no decorations. It, like, people that live in a museum, like their house is like a museum. Yeah. Like, these vacuums are good for them. And those are not the people that need help cleaning, because their house is already super clean and they probably have house cleaners, like 10 of them cleaning their house.
Right.
So, like, we need a bot vac for all the messy people that just have shit everywhere in their homes. When they get that, like, I'm gonna be first in line.
So they need to be like Roomba meets Soppy.
Yes, exactly.
Something like that.
Yeah, we need a rocker bogey, like, off-road suspension bot vac.
They need to make an industrial version of the damn thing, not some mamby-pamby, you know, 1/4-inch ground clearance thing that gets hung up on a rug.
I'm gonna tell Roger he needs to work on that. That can be his next version of Soppy. Sure. Is a bot vac Soppy. He has a Neato, so he could just build a Soppy with like a Neato, and it could just kind of like drop the Neato down to vacuum and then lift it back up.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Or rescue it when it gets in trouble.
Yes, I like that even better.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah. All right. Well, I have some news. So over the weekend, I went to LayerOne, and that is an informational security conference. So it's like InfoSec stuff. Here in LA, here in Pasadena, which is like pretty local. I had never been before, but I went representing Tindy because I do a little freelancing writing for them, and they needed someone to watch their booth a little bit. So they got me a ticket, and I went, and it was pretty fun. I had never been to one of these before. It's pretty low key as far as conferences go. Honestly, it was a bunch of like hacker guys and a few girls hanging out, and they had a retro gaming room in there. And Saturday night, they had a giant GoldenEye tournament. Like, they rented a ballroom at this hotel, and they had on a giant screen GoldenEye. And so they just played GoldenEye until, 2 a.m. or something. And I wasn't there for that, but that sounded pretty fun. But they had some really interesting things. InfoSec people tend to also have interest in other kinds of security, so like lockpicking. And they had a lockpicking booth there. which was pretty cool. They had all the tools and they had all the locks that you could practice with. And they had some of the locks set up to be like of increasing difficulty. So they had these barrel locks, and the barrel locks had 5 pins in them. But to like help you get the hang of it, they had them set up so that they took all the pins out except for one. So there was a 1-pin lock, there was a 2-pin lock, there was a 3-pin lock, and there was a 4-pin lock. So you practice on the 1-pin lock, and when you get a hang of getting that 1 pin situated right to unlock, then you can move on to the 2-pin and the 3-pin. And that was pretty fun. Just kind of tinkering around, and I think I'm gonna probably order a lockpick set because it just seems fun to tinker with and give me something to like fidget with while I watch TV sometimes in the evenings. And they're pretty cheap, so I think I'm gonna play around with that. And that was pretty fun. Probably my favorite thing about LayerOne was HeboCon, which is not specific to LayerOne, but they had HeboCon. And for people that don't know what HeboCon is, it's like BattleBots, but for like the worst robots. So they had a big like spare parts table, which was just, for people that are makers, you have like these bins of just assorted junk, right? Just half broken things, half taken apart things, spare motors, just all kinds of junk. So that was basically their spare parts table. And people that wanted to participate in HeboCon had, 24 hours or something to dig through all that stuff and then build the worst robot that they could come up with. Like, the idea is not to put in a ton of effort. It's really to just have fun.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds like a blast.
Yeah. And these things are very, like, you can't even really call them robots, honestly, because they didn't have any intelligence whatsoever. So someone took like a Batman toy car. It's a motorized electric toy car. And then like put a helicopter toy on the front of it. And so like the helicopter blades are spinning around, and all it does is you turn it on and it just drives forward, like flinging its blades around. Like there's no smarts to it. And so people had all these awful robots, and they would just sort of crash into each other. And sometimes they were so inept that they would just kind of crash, and then neither of them would have enough power to continue, really. And so like their spinning blades would just stop, and then the two robots would just sit there in the middle of the table. And there was a time limit, but it was long enough that you'd sometimes just watch the robots like move 1 millimeter at a time, because one robot had slightly better traction, and they just slowly scoot towards the end of the table, and then one would fall off. Or sometimes the robots would drive at each other, and then like they would just miss each other, and one would just go flying off the end of the table like Thelma and Louise. That was the movie where they
yeah the clip.
They would just go flying off the table, and like they would both fly off the table, but it's like which one flew off the table first? That's the loser. So it was super fun. I had a really good time hanging out, and some really cool people there. I would probably go again. It was fun, especially the lock picking. I want to learn more lock picking.
What was it called again? It was what?
Called LayerOne.
Or LayerOne, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not into InfoSec. I assume LayerOne is some kind of security term, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, probably. I saw some of your Twitter posts on it. Looked pretty cool.
Yeah, so I was talking about badges. They gave out badges, and this year's LayerOne theme was Blade Runner. And so the badge that they gave us looked like the Voight Kampf machine. You know, that thing for seeing if you're an android or not. Right. There's that thing that they put up to the eye to like measure the like iris reaction. It looked like that, and it had flashing lights, and it was really, really, really cool. So it was a good time.
It's cool. Sounds like it's fun. I love the robot thing. We just hack them together and we'll let them do whatever they do. Yeah.
I didn't get to go on Saturday. If I had been on Saturday, I definitely would have built a robot, because that looked like a ton of fun to me.
I've done a few Hackaweek videos like that, just throwing together crazy automata stuff, take some weird motor-driven thing and anthropomorphize it a bit, and then just put a battery on it and let it rip and see what happens. Like
one of them was called Hebo Kitty, because it was literally just some like shitty toy, and I don't remember what it was, but they just took the toy and then they stuck a Hello Kitty doll they found in the spare parts bin on top of it. So, Hebo Kitty. Nice. And like Hebo Kitty did pretty well. It didn't do anything besides just drive forward in a straight line, but yeah. HeboKitty did well. There was one called Duckbot. I think Duckbot won, and I don't remember what Duckbot did other than it had a duck on top of it. So
That's great.
yeah,
Fun
yeah.
stuff. That's cool. Yeah, I wish I lived in a place where stuff like that went on. It's like I gotta go far away to find that. Closest thing is, like I've mentioned before, Raleigh, Durham. There are a couple hacker spaces, but it's an hour and a half drive.
Yeah.
I get home at 6, eat dinner, whatever. Supposed to be there by 7 for their meetings. Nah, it's not gonna happen.
No.
So I just come out here to the Hack Shack and chat with you.
Right. And that's what the internet's for. We all get to hack together on the internet, right?
Yep, exactly. It's fun.
Speaking of hacking, what are you working on? What kind of projects do you have going on?
Did a little bit more with the old mechanical tremolo this week, mostly just brainstorming, on it. And essentially that first iteration was, I guess, kind of my fail of the week, but a fail in a good way. It was just, the first iteration didn't work right. Figured out what I had to do next. So I've been mostly just thinking about what I want to do with that to make it work right. And the way that my whole design thing builds, a lot of it happens in my head first, thinking about it a whole lot. Then I sit down in my drawing program and take what I've worked out in my head, because I can see that three-dimensional stuff in my somewhere in my brain beforehand. And then I can actually do a lot of things where I think about it, I see it move, and I see problems, and I redesign in my head, and then I come up with an idea. Looks like it's going to work, and then I'll sit down and start drawing it, and then print it out and see what it is. So I've got some ideas on that. That's going to be happening probably in another week or two. I'll get the next iteration of that and see if I can make it work.
You had a video out, right?
What's that? Yes, I put a video up of that first part of the build. We talked about it last week, and the other day I did upload a video of it on Hackaweek. It's the mechanical tremolo part 1. And it takes it up to this point where it is now. And I noticed a few weak points in it. And the neat thing about 3D printing is I can just take that file and add more structure to it to make it better. So I don't really have to start all over. I just take what I've already got and more or less just draw a couple of geometric shapes, extrude them where they need to be. And I've now got an improved design. So print that out and continue from there and keep going with it until I get it working the way I want to. Cool. And after watching, again, City of Lost Children last week, which watching that was inspired by going to Maker Faire with the Cyborg Cam. And a couple people at some of the meetups we went to said to me, "Oh my God, have you ever seen City of Lost Children?" I'm like, yeah, kind of like the eyepiece thing, which looked like an old vintage camera lens stuck on some of the people's eyes.
Yeah.
And it was attached to their brain or something, and super sensitive to light. And that's how they, rounded up children to try to harvest their dreams in the movie. Really good movie from, I think, 1996, French movie.
I've heard it's good. I've heard that it's my kind of movie that I should make a point of watching.
It's like Brazil, a lot of ways, like it's in that same genre. So watching that the other day and looking at that eyepiece, I'm like, ooh, you know what? I want to build that. So then I started looking into pictures, finding pictures in Google image search, and found a bunch of pictures of it. Then I went onto eBay looking for a vintage camera, because as I saw the close-ups of that thing and found a website of the behind the scenes of the special effects. And it looks like that's exactly what they did. They just found an old vintage camera that has one of the old time lenses where you can actually change the aperture and the focus. It had a large ring around it and had a little tiny dial on top that you usually would change the aperture that way. And I found this one camera that looks a lot like it. It was on eBay for like $45. Who cares if it works? You're just going to hack it for parts, right? So that's a project I definitely want to do. I want to find one of those, and I was thinking about making it 3D printable, but you'd lose a lot of the detail, which would be really cool to to keep the detail in it. You got two options there. If you had a really high-res 3D scanner, sure, you could do that, turn it into a file and print it. I don't have that. Most people don't have that. And I think you and I both tend to do our DIY stuff in a way where if someone's inspired, they want to do it, they can go out and get the stuff to do it easily and replicate it. So
Yeah, for sure.
I'm thinking I might just try to find one of those cameras and then do a silicone mold of the lens and everything and that whole assembly, maybe 3D print some of the background parts and see if I can come up with a replication of that whole thing that people can build. And, you know, people that go to Comic-Con, whatever, can make it, or just any place, you know, costume party, Halloween, whatever, be able to make the thing and stick it on because it just goes over your eyeball. It's got some cloth coated wire that runs around the back of your head. I've got some old cloth coated wire from vintage stuff around here. And there's a leather strap that kind of goes over the top of your head, holds the whole thing on. So that's a future project that I'm brainstorming.
Oh, so here's a little hack tip. If anyone ever wants to make your own cloth-coated wire, if you're doing some kind of a steampunk thing or just a vintage project and you need cloth-coated wire, you can get some shoelaces. So some shoelaces, right, if you get like a brown shoelace, for example, some shoelaces, like the thicker ones, if you cut the ends off, I forget what those things on the ends, I think they're called aglets, those little hard things on the ends of your shoelace, right?
Yeah.
So if you get a round shoelace, not a flat one, when you get a round one and you cut the ends off, and a lot of them you can pull, there's like filler material inside and it's like kind of just squishy like yarn. You just pull that out and now you have a tube that is woven cloth, and sometimes it'll have a pattern that looks like that old wire wrapped or the old cloth wrapped wire. And then you can just sort of slide it over your wire, and then now you have cloth wrapped wire. And I've done that for projects before. So
brilliant. That's yes. Really cool. I've actually got some of the stuff at work too from some of the old vintage cars I work on. When I pull out the wire harnesses, I always save old wire harnesses because if I need to repair one, I've got the color stripes on it and everything. And some of them are cloth coated, so they're kind of neat to have around.
Yeah.
Old TV consoles from the 50s, 60s, they're great for harvesting that stuff out of. There's a ton of that old cloth coated stuff in there. Anything basically pre-1955,
yeah,
you know, it's still going to have some in. World War II brought about the advent of a lot of plastic technology, and so plastic coated wire started to come into being after all of that, but it didn't really hit the mainstream until after like mid 50s and 60s. Yeah, anything you find like that, really cool to harvest that stuff out of there for steampunk stuff for sure.
For sure. Now, I don't know to what extent this is true, but I've seen that on some of the older wire, that cloth coated wire, some of it, you'll have your like wire core, and then you'll have like white windings, and then you'll have your cloth wrapped around that. And some of those, that white stuff that's wrapped around the core is asbestos. So if you're gonna play around with old cloth wiring, just do your research and make sure that you're not like stripping a bunch of asbestos off wire and breathing it in.
Right. So, don't snort asbestos. Bad. You get what's it called? Mesothelioma. Not a good.
That's
thing.
right.
Right. That's what Steve McQueen died of.
Yes.
What are you working on?
So I did a teardown video the other day. I like to go to this thrift store by my house, and on Sunday I went by the thrift store, and there was this pet feeder. It caught my eye because it's kind of got that modern industrial design that you see that's all sort of like goes back to Apple, but you see it in like the Nest thermostats. It's not like sort of simple, like really simple, very like form heavy design. So this thing caught my eye. I was like, oh, what is that? And I went over, and it's a pet feeder, and it had a camera in it. And I was like, man, this is really stupid. And I tweeted like, this is dumb. And my friend Maker Block, who's on Twitter, I think I mentioned him in last week's episode. You can find him on Twitter. Check him out. He does interesting stuff with vacuum forming. He built his own vacuum former. Anyhow, he was like, I want to see a teardown of that. I'll give you $13 if you tear it down. So he PayPal'd me $13, and I went back to the thrift store and I found it. It was still there, even though it was a Memorial Day sale. And on Monday, I tore it down, and I found some interesting things. Nothing super interesting, other than like the most obvious interesting thing is that it was webcam enabled, which was obvious from the outside of it.
I saw your video, by the way, the YouTube video, and I got to say the part where you mentioned like, so it's got a webcam in it, so like, you know, I guess you can watch your pet eat if you're into stuff like that. I thought that was such a great line. It's lunch hour. I'm gonna watch Fluffy eat.
Yeah, I can't imagine. You know, sometimes I think like it would be fun to watch my cat on a webcam. But, like, one time I don't want to watch him eating is like when his face is smushing into his food and he's like snorting and getting food all over his nose and whiskers, just like.
Right.
Like, I don't want to watch that.
And the thing is called, the name on the front of this, folks, is Pet Want. That's the name of the device, is Pet Want. So it's like, you know, I guess from the pet's point of view, like, I want food, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, one of the people that I talked to on Twitter about it, he said, so he has the dumb version that's not like the internet-enabled version. It doesn't have a webcam. And he actually likes his. And this is smart. I didn't think about this. But, you know, my cat is a pain in the ass when he wants his food. And he comes and he bothers me and he bothers me. And if I'm busy with something, he will bother me because he wants his food. But this guy I talked to on Twitter, and I apologize for forgetting what his Twitter name is. He said he really likes his pet feeder because now his cat associates the robot with food. And so when it's like hungry time for the cat, it's not bothering him. The cat's over like rubbing on the robot and meowing at the robot, waiting for like 5 o'clock sharp when it's going to dump its food out. But he says like now he gets to just like, he's just the petter. Like when the cat wants to be petted, cat comes over and he gets the pet all the cat wants, but doesn't have to deal with the cat being obnoxious about food. And I was like, that is a really great idea. And I didn't think about that. And I kind of want one just for that reason now. Kind
of a Pavlovian thing there. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Actually, I kind of like that with my cat and, you know, the outside cats we have. I like the interaction when they're hungry. They come up and, you know, they're all over you. And
yeah.
Cool. But,
yeah. Well, so mine, like, he does this thing in the morning that I mentioned in my teardown video that, you know, he sleeps on my bed. And then when I get up, he's like, oh, it's morning. Like, it's time for breakfast. And so he gets up and I go down the hallway. And if I keep going down the hallway, then I would go to the kitchen. But if I make a left, then I go into the bathroom. And so he gets up and he runs down the hallway expecting that I'm coming for him. But when he sees me turning towards the bathroom to go into the bathroom instead, because I'm going to shower and he's going to have to wait until I'm out of the shower, he runs over and he starts clawing at my feet because he's like mad that I'm not feeding him, right? And I'm like, man, get out of here, you little jerk. Like, I'll feed you in 20 minutes.
Cats.
Yeah, there's something else.
They're awesome.
Yeah. So there's that. I'm getting some work done on the death clock again. Now that I had some time to work on it, we had everything wired up permanently except the vacuum fluorescent display was still on a breadboard. And so I pulled it off and I started soldering ribbon cables to it. And now I just need to solder the pull-up resistors to that. Now it's on a little perf board. I need to solder the pull-up resistors. And then the part I'm scared of is because there's a bunch of wires and they aren't just like straight. Like they don't just go straight across like one to one. Some of them have to cross over each other.
Yeah.
And I can make sure I get the order right or I like screw it up. But once I get the pull-up resistors on, then I just need to solder the other end of those the ribbon cable to the driver board. And then like the guts of it are done. They're like done. And all that'll be left is to make the case. And then Roger's writing some new code for it so that it'll do its thing. And I was looking, I really wanted to put it in a cigar box. And I have not been able to find a cigar box. I still need to go look at a like cigar store to see if they have any cigar boxes. But I went ahead and started designing a 3D printed case for it today. And I'm not always a big fan of how 3D printed stuff looks, depending on the aesthetic of the project I'm working on.
Yeah.
But I think this one will be okay because I really wanted to have the look of like a vintage alarm clock. And I'll grab mine that I have on my table here if I can unhook it from its own wire here. I like these like alarm clocks. This is the one that goes on my desk. You know, they're just like cheap plastic, right? And they have this fake like wood grain. And I really like that look. So I'm designing a 3D printed case that's just going to be black. But you can get at the dollar store, you can get shelf liner paper, like I forget what they call that stuff. It's contact.
Used to call it contact. Yeah,
Yeah,
contact paper.
contact
My
paper,
mom
right?
used to line the cabinets with it.
Yeah, yeah, my mom too. And you can get small rolls of that at the dollar store for $1, and they have some with this like fake cheap looking wood grain, and I love that. So I think that what I'm going to do is 3D print a black case for it, and then cut a piece of the shelf liner to go over the top of it to give it that fake 70s like faux wood look.
Yeah, that's
And I think
even
that'll be
cooler.
fine.
I think
Yeah,
that's even cooler than a wood box because
yeah.
I was going to mention in the 70s, I mean, I was in my teens in the 70s and there was all these clocks coming out. By the way, I'm looking for a flip clock on eBay.
Oh,
I want a flip clock bad, but they're selling for like hundreds of dollars. They're crazy.
they got really popular.
Yeah. But all these clocks came out and you're going to love this. Almost all of them had this little sticker on them and it said genuine simulated wood grain. It was like genuine, not some fake cheesy simulated.
Right. This is the real thing. We've actually made fake wood here.
It was so good. Genuine simulated. It's like genuine simulated diamond,
Yeah.
Those two being sold on TV.
Yeah. So I'm working on that. I got my aquarium started. I've been wanting to do an aquarium for months now because I have a little pond in the backyard, but raccoons keep eating all my fish. And so I finally got sick of it and I'm starting an aquarium. That's not really a tech thing, but I'm probably going to do some tech stuff, some electronics just for the lighting. And I was thinking about, maybe putting a little pH meter in there and giving it some sort of obvious visual signal so I can see just by looking at it. But that's down the road. Right now, I'm just trying to get my plants and my water established. So just that. And
it's sciencey, it's not tech, but it's
science.
Really
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of really cool stuff going on, organic chemistry wise in a pond, in a bunch of water. I mean, there's this whole biological balance that goes on and the whole natural biofilter that happens in a pond. And if it's fun to replicate that in the house, in a little container. Once you get it in balance, if you can keep it that way, it's pretty fun to watch.
It is. And, some people are really into like clean aquariums with like white gravel or colored gravel. And they have like fluorescent lighting or UV lighting, and they have fancy pumps and all this stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I really like an aquarium that's kind of almost like in a natural state, where it just has a bunch of plants, has some fish, not like any colorful fish. I really like feeder guppies because they're just plain normal fish. Just plants and fish and some shrimp and some rocks and some pieces of wood, and just so that it looks like you're looking underneath like a real pond. And that's what I'm looking for with this one. So,
and if you can get stuff from your, like a local pond or stream or whatever. I mean, I got friends that have one that's just got like a little crayfish in it and one fish, and then just detritus from a local creek, like old leaves and sticks and stuff like that. They just threw in there. Even with our aquarium in the house has got like some green algae growing on the glass, down low and on some of the plants. And just leave it alone because that's just part of the whole, homeostasis of the thing. So I just leave it like it is. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, and that's what I did. I pulled some of the muck out of my little barrel pond because I've had the barrel pond for 1.5 years, and it's pretty well established, and it's got muck in the bottom as like a pond does. So I pulled some of that out and mixed it into the substrate just to kind of seed it with some of the right bacteria. I put some of the water from my pond, and then I went down to the river.
Yeah, that was cool. I like your pictures you posted.
We do have rivers here in LA.
In the middle of LA with all the rain you've gotten, it's turned into a wetland again. It's kind of
right. Right. The LA River is still a disaster because they've paved it all. But the river I live near, the San Gabriel River, there's a good portion of it it has levees on both sides, and it's pretty engineered. There's still like a series of like little weir dams all the way down it. But it's been raining so much here in LA this year that it's really nice down there. There's pools and there's mud and there's swamp and there's grass and there's meadows, and it's really nice. And I went down there and walked around on Monday, and it was quiet, and there was butterflies, and there was a bunch of like waterfowl, little like, I don't know what they are, like pipers or something, little birds that like run real fast across the mud. And there was a bunch of turkey vultures, and it was a really nice time down there. And I went down there and collected some driftwood, and I put that in the pond. And so that'll probably seed it with some more stuff because that's, the river looks especially healthy this year. So there's probably some good river germs in there for it. So we'll see.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, those pictures are pretty amazing. I mean, it's like Yeah, you can see the cityscape in the background, and then just this whole field of just wetland flowers and greens and everything, and
Yeah.
pretty cool. Nice little escape without having to go too far either, I guess, huh?
No, it's like a 5-minute ride on my bicycle from my house. And it's nice because the river has a bike trail that goes along both sides of it. And if I wanted to, I could ride all the way down to the beach, which I've done occasionally. It's a long ride. It's not so bad going down, but it's kind of sucks coming back because it's uphill the whole way.
Yeah.
And in the afternoon, you're fighting the wind because we get an offshore flow. So you're going uphill and you're already tired because you already rode all day and you're fighting the wind. But you can ride all the way from the San Gabriel Mountains. Like you can ride all the way up the canyon and you could ride all the way down to the beach. And that would be like a 45-mile ride. But it's really nice. You just ride and ride and ride, and there's no stoplights, there's no signals, there's no cars, there's nothing. It's just ride along the river. It's really nice.
That's nice. It used to be like that in Phoenix too, on the Salt River out in the east part of Phoenix. I used to do that a lot. And then mountain biking out towards some of the reservoirs and lakes. Same thing. You just no traffic. You're just kind of cruising along the river, and you're still in the city, so to speak, but you don't notice it.
Sure.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. What else have we got? Do you have any? What about any fails of the week? You have any fails this week?
Well, like I mentioned, the only fail really was the mechanical tremolo first. That's about it. Not much else. Kind of a neat life hack. I put French doors in our house. Wow, what's it been? 7 years ago. And I put these door handles on them that are just kind of like a right angle style, not a knob kind, the kind that just kind of have a lever that sits off to the left and the right. You push down on it, the door opens. And I put them in, and about a year after they were there, maybe 2 years after they were in, we came back from a weekend trip, and I went to open one of the doors to go into my office area, which is also where the dogs come and go. They have like a doggy door on that room, and we can lock it, the French door, so that if anybody was to crawl in the dog door, they couldn't get in the house. And I pushed on the handle, and it just flopped down. And it's like, what's going on here, and found out the spring inside the thing was broken. So, this lock set lasted a couple of years, and the spring broke. I'm like, well, that's pretty lame. I mean, come on, I paid like $50 for this thing, and it broke. So, well, I'll fix it sometime. I'll tear it apart. And I finally got tired of it. And now that we have 2 dogs again, because the other one passed away 3 years ago, Sophie's been alone for 3 years. I finally got another dog. And so it's been more of making sure that door stays shut. And I'm tired of this thing being messed up. So I took it apart. I found out the spring that was broken in it was just in one side of the lock set, which is in the side without the lock. And this is, I'm not going to mention the name. I'm not going to diss a company, but it starts with an S, and it sounds like a sledgehammer. So I took it apart and found out the spring was broken. I'm like, this is pretty lame for this company, for this to happen. This is a glitch. This is a bad batch of springs, whatever. So, okay. So I went down to Lowe's Hardware, and I bought another one. It cost me $54 for the whole lock set. And I brought it home, took it all apart, took that part of the lock set, installed it on my door, took my broken spring, put it back in the box, took it back to Lowe's. This is defective. You know what? Didn't feel a bit bad about it because they made a shitty product, and it didn't last but 2 years. And just to make it look good, I kept it for like 2 weeks. So, call it unethical, call it what you want. I call it a life hack. I solved the problem, and I got my money back because, damn it, I spent $54 on a lock set. That thing should last 20 years.
Yeah.
And so, and they gladly took it back. And I know people that work at hardware stores and how this works. How this works is they'll put it in a pile. They'll send it back to the company. The company will credit them, and they will throw it in the trash. They'll just recycle it or throw it in the trash. It's easier for a company to do that than it is to do anything else.
Yeah. Well, so I worked at Home Depot for almost 4 years, and it's even shorter of a process than that. So and I don't know how they do it at Lowe's, but at Home Depot, when you get returns like that, they just get they get called markdowns, and they get marked down on a sheet. You put down like the UPC, and that's it. We take them in the back, and there was a giant trash compactor, And at the end of the night, like if you worked the night shift, the closing shift, part of your duties was like everyone had to go back to the compactor, and you just throw stuff in the compactor and just throw stuff in the compactor. And it's like an hour of throwing stuff in the compactor. And then like you throw it in for like 10 minutes and then shut the door and then press the compactor button and it crushes it all and you open it and throw more in. So most of the stuff doesn't even go back to the manufacturer.
Wow.
It's crushed right there in the store.
It's pointless too, I guess. You know, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, they don't want to pay to ship that stuff back.
No.
And for the most part, like the companies, I assume, just have they just trust Home Depot's process. And so if Home Depot says this thing's defective, the company says, all right, fine.
Yeah.
Like, we'll credit you for it.
No, it's just kind of a cost thing. It just comes down to, you know, that's the cheapest route to go. In other words, if something is, you know, returned or defective.
Yeah.
And
you know what was messed up was that we used to get, and you can still get them, I think, you know, during the summer when like the outside garden area was more popular, you could get these containers full of ladybugs. And so you like buy 200 ladybugs and take them to your garden and let them go, right? But sometimes like half the ladybugs would be dead, but like they consider them like a product, not a creature. And they'd be like, mark it down, throw it in the compactor. And I'd be like, but it's a bunch of bugs. Like, and so I would put them open and let them fly out. But like, not everyone would do that. They just throw the things in the compactor. And I'm like, those poor bugs. Like, you're just crushing them under a sink.
Yeah. Because ladybugs do good stuff. They should be let free to do their good things.
You should.
I had no idea they sold them there. I've never seen them at any of those stores.
Yeah. I think they just get them in occasionally. I know they weren't like an all the time thing. I just know that during the summer, sometimes we would have ladybugs people could buy.
They're really good for aphids. You got a bad aphid infestation. They just eat them right up, I guess.
Yeah. I've been planting a lot of plants in my little front yard, and so my front yard used to just be barren weeds, and now I have like a lot of nice plants out there. And I'm starting to see, I started to see aphids, which was annoying, but now I'm starting to see ladybugs, and it's really nice. Like the ladybugs that are coming and they're eating the aphids, and then I just get to see like nice ladybugs flying around out there. So it's nice.
That's bugs, you know, but people look at a lot of bugs like, oh, they're so annoying, they're pests. But, you know, every bug's got some sort of purpose. It came into being and it's still around because it serves some kind of function.
Right.
And so, you know, just leave it alone, and it might be a pest to you, but it's a beneficial thing to somebody else. Like spiders. Everybody wants to crush spiders. Every spider they see. It's like, you know, I leave them alone. Like,
so do I.
There's only a couple poisonous ones. Same thing with snakes. It's like there's, you know, very few poisonous snakes, but everybody wants to kill snakes.
Yeah. I mean, if I see a spider in my house and I get rid of the spider, like that just means if a bug is in my house, then the bug has free reign, right? And then I got to take care of it. But if I leave the spider's going to eat the bug. The spider's not going to bother me anyway. So like, spider gets to stay.
And get eaten by the cat.
No, he doesn't. He eats two kinds of bugs. He eats big grasshoppers. He gets these grasshoppers from outside and he brings them inside and he pulls off one of the legs so they can only hop in a circle and can't get over it.
Cats, they're so good at that.
Yeah, he eats those and he eats cockroaches and he brings in the stupid cockroaches from outside and he plays with them under the kitchen table, and most of the time he kills them and sometimes he eats them and I see him just crunching.
They're crunching, yeah.
Really gross.
It's like a little nacho for your cat.
Yeah. But I don't think he's noticed spiders because they generally are like small and they just sort of sit there. They don't like, most spiders don't run around, so they don't get his attention. So they just stay for the most part.
Our Siamese cat that we've had now for, I guess, a couple of months, we've discovered she's a really good fly catcher.
That's good.
She tracks them. She'll run all over the house after them, and then she'll eventually get them. She's pretty good at it.
That's fun.
Yeah.
I used to live with my brother, and he did this thing when like moths would get in the house. He would take our cat and he'd hold the cat. So like imagine the cat's in my hands, but like on his back. And he'd walk around the house with the cat on his back. And it was like moth catching time.
I've done that.
He'd walk around and he'd see a moth and he'd put the cat up at the ceiling and the cat would be all reaching up and he'd grab the moths and eat them. And he would go around the house catching moths that way.
That's great.
Yeah, it was fun.
So this is awesome. Hackaweek Coast to Coast episode 6 has turned into talking about bugs. Nice.
I know, right?
Oh, it's all good.
Yeah. Well, we can get back on topic. I wanted to share a life hack. This is not my life hack, but I really like this hack. So when I did that teardown of that pet feeder, some of the people that follow me on Twitter were commenting, and one of the guys, his Twitter handle is Radio Alpha Bega, and that's ALFABEGA. He had one of those exact pet feeders, and he said it was a piece of crap because it's wireless and it's supposed to connect to your internet. And he said he had to change the name of his router. And after he changed the name of his router, his pet feeder would not connect to the internet anymore. Even though he like did a hard reset on it a bunch of times, it just was like, nope. Like it's software permanently like decided that was the name of the router, and he could not connect to the router anymore. So it's useless to him. So I want to share this so you can see. He came up with a pretty good solution. That I thought was kind of awesome. Let's see if I can pull this down here. So check this out. So can you see this? See this, Dean?
Yeah.
All right, so this is the inside of the pet feeder here with the kibble, and there's an Arduino here.
Right.
And then this is a relay board, and then the relay board has 2 wires going down inside of the machine. And I asked him, like, what did you do there? And so what he did was that he couldn't control his pet feeder by his phone, so he couldn't program it anymore. But there's a button, that set button. You can still like press it, and if you press it, it's just like a manual override. So if you ever want to just give your pet some food, you just press that button and some food comes out. So he just disconnected the button and connected it to that relay and connected it to the Arduino, and he just programmed the Arduino to like manually press the feed button like 3 times a day to feed his cat.
Nice.
I just was like, this is such a good hack. This is like the hackiest hack, right?
It totally is. That's brilliant.
Yeah. At first I thought that he was controlling the motor, but no, he left like the brain of the feeder intact and just has this thing standing in for him, pressing the button in essence for him, which I just
nothing more than just some code to do a button press 3 times a day.
Yeah.
That's a genius little hack. I love that.
Yeah.
I love the simple ones like that.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Super
cool.
good. All right. And then I had so this is a surprise hack. I thought this was pretty cool. So there's a friend of mine, Dave Darko. You can find him on Twitter at Dave Darko. He does a lot of really cool electronic projects.
I started following him about a month ago. Yeah. Yeah,
he's good. He does some really awesome stuff. He's out of Germany. And I'll share this too. He does some really nice like PCB art, and he has a new one, and I thought this was great. And let me get this up here for you. So, all right, can you see this? No.
Oh yeah, the Space Invaders thing.
Yeah. So this is a PCB board. It's a PC board, and he has a grid of like surface mount LEDs on the back, and he has little clear windows on the front shaped like the Space Invaders. And this little board is going to be a Space Invaders game. And I just thought that was such a fun little project. It's got some little tactile switches for the controls, and you're going to have like a Space Invaders game that looks like maybe a little bit bigger than a credit card. And I think that's a really cool project. And he's probably going to be selling them. So I'm going to keep an eye out for those because it looks fun.
Definitely. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. I don't think I have anything else. What about you?
I guess that's about it. There was like one more piece of news, I guess, that I wanted to mention. Teenage Engineering with little pocket operators. I've done a couple videos on those. They've got a new one out that's a limited edition Rick and Morty edition, and it just makes lo-fi sounds, which is
that's cool.
And then I found this YouTube user, GR8 Oak, like the letter or the number 8, GR8 Oak, did a lo-fi edit of a Rick and Morty thing that's pretty pathetic. it's good. It's pretty funny. It's like, Morty pining for this girl in school, and and it's got all this lo-fi music behind it, and it's like it just makes you go, oh yeah, I've been in love with someone and they didn't pay attention to me.
Yeah.
It just kind of draws that out of you. So that's pretty neat. And then there was a thing I noticed today too, another little story about Chinese drones. Just so everyone knows, the Department of Homeland Security is warning us to be careful of buying Chinese drones because they may be spying on us. so may all of the Internet of Things devices that you buy on Amazon. So nothing new there.
Yeah, that was part of my motivation with wanting to tear down that pet feeder because, like, it's a pet feeder and people don't think about this stuff, and they should, but it's a pet feeder and you're giving some company and you're giving the whole internet access to the inside of your home. It's got it had a microphone, it had a camera, and granted, it's probably not looking in your bedroom, or it's probably not looking like anywhere that's anywhere sensitive, but you're still letting some company you don't know anything about into your home, and you're installing an app on your phone that you use to communicate with this thing. Like, people should think more about what kind of devices they give access to the insides of their home. And I know probably our cell phones are spying on us, and I know some of our smart TVs spy on us, but we don't have to let everything spy on us.
No.
You could just pour food in a dog bowl and be done with it, and no one's going to spy on you, right?
Exactly. There's a tendency for people to just blindly trust technology, that it's all safe, it's okay. Oh no, they wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And I think people like you and me, I kind of think you're probably the same mindset of like, no, I'm going to be the skeptic on this one. I'm pretty much just going to be suspect that every single, I call it the Internet of hackable things, because that's what they are. And there's been plenty of incidences where, hackers have gone, yeah, look at this. I broke into this thing and I can basically listen to you. I can watch what you're doing. And what was it? A couple of years ago, there was one of the hacker groups posted basically a way to get into every single webcam that was on the market that you could buy at Best Buy or anywhere else, if it was connected to a computer, and hack into it and be able to look at whatever's going on in the room at that time. And they were that wide open and insecure, and so I pretty much look at all that stuff that way.
Yeah.
There's a piece of tape over, all my monitor cameras. If I've got USB hooked up to the hub on the monitor, I stick a piece of tape over it, Call me paranoid, but I call me smart, because
no, it's true. I have a piece of tape over my webcam on my computer at home. I mean, this one's uncovered right now because I'm using it, but I never
Zuckerberg
looking at me through my webcam.
There was a post on Facebook about, 10 months ago when I was still on Facebook. I finally got off, and it was supposedly Mark Zuckerberg's laptop, and it had a piece of tape over the webcam.
Yeah.
Mr. Like, oh no, we're, privacy is our main thing. And he's got tape over his webcam. So that was kind of telling.
Yeah, for sure.
It's pretty funny. Well, I guess that's a wrap it for this week.
Oh, yep.
Well, cool. I guess thanks to everybody that listened to this one. And there's other ones now. We've got 6 in the bag. So if you want to hear more, just go looking for them wherever you find podcasts. They're all over the place now. They get aggregated to all the usual podcast places. So if you've got a place you go to look for them, just look for Hackaweek Coast to Coast. You'll find more of our stuff. And we both have YouTube channels. Mine is Hackaweek TV.
And mine is Emily's Electric Oddities.
Pretty cool stuff there. I really love Emily's trailer. It's pretty cool. It's got like really groovy, cool 70s sounds, which I could totally relate to because I am a child of the 60s and 70s. So yeah, check out Emily's stuff. New and upcoming channel, and she does some great stuff on there. Got a great style with the videos. So keep it up. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think maybe we're going to have some guests coming up on the podcast.
Yes.
I think we're going to have some guests coming up soon, huh?
Yep, we got a few people we've talked to, and we'll definitely be doing that. That'll be fun. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure.
So you can follow us on Twitter. Also, I am at Hackaweek, and Emily is
MLE_online.
Right. So, all right. Well, I guess that's it. So thanks for listening and watching. And until next time,
keep on hacking.
Bye-bye.
Bye.